Mike finds a way to get rid of problem employee. The revenge wasn't mine, but I figured I'd share as I was witness to the beginning. Certain names and details changed to protect the guilty. Background. Years back I worked for a large bank in the UK. We all worked on the same floor and in the same department but within different teams. I was just passing through on a secondment and saw the beginning of this revenge, but was filled in on the aftermath later. One of the teams was run by a woman called Sarah. Sarah was by many measures a good manager, but she had a blind spot. That blind spot was a woman called Helen. Now when I was in my previous role, I interacted with Helen a fair bit and she had seemed friendly. But when it came to actually working with her, she was a nightmare. She'd tattle, steal ideas and credit, and generally throw you under the bus at any opportunity. I'm not sure why Sarah always protected her, but it soon became a sore point for most people on the floor who had to deal with her. Enter Mike, who was the manager of a smaller team. Mike could be a bit of a dick but was still professional and fun to work with. To give you an idea of his character, I found out I was being made redundant. And even though he wasn't my manager, he heard about it and booked time out to help me with my CV and do interview practice. Shortly after, it was announced that Mike's smaller team was being dissolved, and the staff either made redundant or moved to other teams. At the time of the cuts, the economy in the UK was in a bad state, and all the banks were looking for efficiencies. He was redeployed and took the vacant manager role under Sarah that Helen had been gunning for. To make matters worse, Helen now reported directly to him. Helen was furious and spent no time in making her discontent known, as she felt she was entitled to the promotion. Unfortunately for her, Mike was wise to her. They'd both joined the company around the same time, and so he knew exactly what she was like. He'd even had her blame him for her mistakes before. Shit, even the projects she'd gotten so much praise for had been work one of his staff had done. So he started the process of documenting her poor work and attitude to manage her out of the business. Sarah, however, would not allow it. Helen was a high performer in her eyes and she wouldn't sign off on him getting rid of her. When I left the team, Mike was frustrated with her and wasn't sure what to do. Now the revenge. I met up with Mike a year later and he shared how he'd solved the Helen problem with me. Because he knew all of the issues I'd had with her. Because Sarah had his hands tied, his only other option to get Helen out of the team was for her to leave of her own accord. He couldn't oust her by making her life difficult or she'd go to Sarah, so he went the other way. The motherfucker sat through every performance meeting with her for the rest of the year, gritting his teeth and praising her. That then justified him giving her a really high performance rating. He also used his own contacts to find roles in other teams at his grade that he then talked up to Helen. These roles were specifically selected because they specialized in one of the things Helen claimed she was an expert at, but had very little real experience in. Basically roles where he knew she'd have the highest chance of shitting the bed. Eventually she applied for one and he spent several weeks coaching her for the interview. In the company at the time, the interviews were scored off of three main factors: performance rating and current role, competency-based interview results, relevant experience. He'd done everything he could to make her shine in all three. She took the promotion and within 2 months had quit the bank. He knew she wasn't ready for the responsibility, didn't have the skills, and her poor work ethic would be exposed. Worst case, she'd get her shit together and he'd still look like the perfect manager to Sarah. Upon finding out he couldn't fire the problem employee, manager gets her promoted to a team where she'll either get fired or quit. Pro Revenge 2. Your dog hurt my animals, now your four-wheeler is a submarine. Let's preface this by saying I live in a rural area. A dead-end gravel road that you need to take another 2 gravel roads to even get to. Then you mistake it for a driveway. In front of my house, there's a cornfield. Behind, woods. On the sides, the weeds. It's just Virginia creeper, tall grass, and intermittent wildflowers. There are ages-old wooden pegs driven into the ground to mark the edge of everybody's property. On the edge of the cornfield, there is one family's property. And I mean the whole extended family. There are 6 houses, all on about 6 acres. All but 5 of those houses look like trailers, but with brick foundations locking them to the ground. The other one is a 2-story farmhouse. Behind their small area is more woods. Now, the antagonist of this tale is the dick in the 2-story. We'll call him Dave. Dave is short, with a massive beer belly, bald, and a beard that looks like it came from a Chinese knockoff of Duck Dynasty. He was 4 times divorced, always from cheating. I don't know how they didn't catch on to that pattern. Always drunk, and had about 5 old wrecked derby cars on his front lawn at any given moment. Now, you don't need to know all this, but it's important to me that you do. Dave had 2 dogs, one sweetheart pit bull named Riley who has bit only one person ever. And it was Dave himself. His other dog was a pit bull black lab mix named Max, and it was fucking vicious. Occasionally, Riley would come up and play with my dog and the stray cat we had outside. One Saturday, at 8 in the morning, I woke up to my little sister, 11 at the time, crying and my dog angrily barking at something. I ran out with a big-ass hiking stick, and saw Max with the kitten in its mouth. The kitten was limp. I sprinted at the dog, yelling, which scared it off. It dropped the kitten, and ran home. The stray had kittens that apparently only my sister knew about. And Max found them and decided they were great alternatives to his chew toys. It killed 3 and injured 1 who would make a full recovery. I gathered them in a shoebox, let my sister say goodbye and cry over it, and buried them on the edge of the weeds, about 4 feet below so nothing could smell them and dig them up. I told my parents, and demanded we do something. They gave me a long roundabout, nothing we can do. Our 2 families were pretty friendly, and my parents didn't want to lose a friendship over a stray cat. So I grabbed an airsoft gun, hopped on my quad bike, and rode down to his house. I knocked on the door while the 2 dogs were playing in his yard. The door opened, and the smell of alcohol nearly knocked me off my feet. "Yeah?" Dave slurred. "Your dog just killed 4 of my cats." Not technically true, but I was going for a guilt trip. "That's a shame," he grunted. I could tell he really didn't care at all. "I want you to put a chain on him. Keep HJM here." He laughed at me. I was pissed. "Not gonna happen." I sighed and said, "Look man, I can't make you do anything. But I held up the airsoft gun. "Next time I see that dog cross the property line, I'll tag it with this. After that, it'll be a real one." He seemed to sober up in an instant. "You threatening me, Kirster?" he growled. I started to lose my nerve at that, but I tried to maintain composure. "No sir, I'm just letting you know what would happen should your dog wander off your property." I walked to my bike, and drove off. I was bluffing, just so we're all on the same page. I wasn't planning on executing a dog. Maybe teach it a lesson or 2 with an airsoft, but not killing. 2 nights later, I let my dog outside. I hear him start yelping and doing his defensive bark as I'm sitting down to play Minecraft. I grab the airsoft and run out. Lo and behold, my dog is squared up against Max. A dog twice his size, and protecting the kittens, like a true good boy. So I unload quite a few pellets into this oversized raccoon and hear it yelp off into the darkness. I bring my dog, and the kittens inside, and look over my dog. He had a relatively small bite on his leg, but he was otherwise fine. I treated it as best I could, much to the dismay of my dog, who whined the whole time, then went to bed. Next morning, I rode back down Dave's He opens the door, sober this time. It was here again last night. It attacked my dog. Deal with it. Now. Yeah. Your dog probably started it, the stupid fucking mutt. Maybe if your dog was trained better, Maxie wouldn't have to fight his dumb ass so often. It's like you have a fucking rat as a pet. Dave said. That was the final straw. I decided that if death and injury to my animals wasn't gonna change this, I would need drastic measures. Whatever, Dave. See ya. Just try to deal with this, I said, and walked off. I heard him chuckle smugly as I got on the quad. Amidst the junked cars, in Dave's driveway was two new pickups. An old beat-up pickup, a covered boat on a trailer, an RV, two racing quads, and a couple more cars. Then I saw it. And my plan began to formulate. In the open garage door, next to his Harley-Davidson motorcycle, I saw a brand new Yamaha Sport 4-wheeler. I went home and figured the details for the plan. The aforementioned woods and weeds, covered in paths for 4-wheelers. Everybody in the area had one, and all us kids rode frequently. And out behind Dave's house was a makeshift 8-track, and a path leading to it. But what matters is that Dave had a man-made pond, up to 20 feet deep at some areas. And the trail to the 8-track ran right by it, and it was owned by his parents, who gave me contract stating I could landscape their land whenever, as long as no structural damage occurred. I was super into making sure I could never be sued for anything I did. I recorded audio during my first traffic stop. I had a signed contract every time I had sex with my girlfriend, giving consent, etc. You get the point. On Friday, Dave threw a party to celebrate an engagement, if I remember correctly. And I made a show of riding my own 4-wheeler from 6 till 9. At about 9:45, I started. I parked it so that my 4-wheeler and a big old willow were blocking any clear view from the porch. And I began my late-night, payless, landscaping work. About 30 minutes later, a drunken voice called out to me. "You all right down there?" "Yeah," I called back. I hit a bit of a pothole and I think it knocked a few wires loose. They stumbled back inside, where the beer was. Then, the weekend comes. Custody weekend. Cue Dave's son, Billy. Billy is 1 year older than me and we grew up together and I know him like the back of my hand. His dad gives him whatever he wants, and he knows it, but is a pretty chill guy despite it. Billy was way different than his dad. He was friendly, smart, reliable, loyal to his girlfriend, all the works. Billy did take after his dad in one aspect, though. He drank like a sailor. I knew all of this while executing my plan. Saturday night, Billy gets super drunk, rides his dad's brand new Yamaha over to my place. And Max is in tow. Expected. The dog loved Billy almost as much as his dad did. He asked me if I wanted to race, and I accepted. We drove down to the 8-track. I watched Billy, drunk as hell, looking back at Max, who was following him. Hit the trench I dug the night before going a solid 10 miles per hour. Not all that fast, but the trench was dug so it would suck the wheel right in, and slam the bike to the left. Immediately into an 8-foot deep pond. Billy hit exactly where I hoped he would. And he, atop his 4-wheeler, drove straight into the pond. He climbed out, sobered up, and we watched a brand new quad bike sink beneath the water. "What are you going to do about that? Your dad will be pissed," I said, barely containing a smile. "No," he replied, a bit sad that his new toy was gone. "I'll figure out something." I feigned anxiety, and got a laugh out of him. "Don't worry, Kure. We'll leave you out of it." I instituted phase 3. I suggested to Billy that he blame Max somehow. Because Dave would never put him down. And he did just that. He said he was worried about Max because was attacking the 4-wheeler. And hit a pothole that threw him into the pond. Billy got off scot-free, Max got chained outside with the small dog house. And we all lived happily ever after. Actually, that's a lie. Dave was really sad for a long time because he sunk a lot of money into that quad. Your dog hurts my animals, I'll turn your four-wheeler into a submarine.